folks, Joel Rather here, Hunt, Hike, Harvest Outdoors. Super pumped because we have something special to bring to you today. If you've paid attention to any of our previous reviews that we've done on our page, you've seen us with the Mantis systems. The Laser Academy, the X10 Elite, we went through the modification of the X10 Elite, utilizing it in the archery setting. And then we also did a comparative analysis of the Laser Academy paired up against the X10 Elite and showed some of the functionality and differentiation between them. Well, today we have their newest system, which is their Blackbeard system. We are pumped to show this to you. We brought along a special guest, a good friend of ours who works in the military, who has a lot more experience than us. We actually have a video prepared. We're going to show you kind of a CQB situation of him utilizing this system in what would be more of a real world situation of clearing through a building. So we're excited to show that to you. We're going to talk about some of the functionality. So let's get into it. Okay, so a couple of the things that we want to kind of set the table for as we start digging into what's inside this system, how does it work, and what are we going to use it for. So as you can see, we have our AR here, which is what the Blackbeard system is designed for. And this can be utilized virtually on all different types and specs of a standard AR. All we're going to do is we're going to show you what's inside of the system. We're going to show you how to break this actual AR down and how quick and easy it is to install the Mantis system and be up and running in a matter of minutes. So to start with this, what we're going to do is we're going to show you what's inside this Mantis Blackbeard system. This is going to come in your standard box. We've taken it out of there. It's going to come with this case, which is super nice, padded, super easy. And there's really only a couple of components here. Number one is going to be your bolt carrier system. This is going to replace your bolt carrier within the AR. There is the magazine itself that's going to insert just like your normal magazine would. These two are going to function together. We're going to talk about how they operate. Also within the system, there's going to be a charging cable, some simple instructions that they give you, as well as some connectivity, because the Blackbeard system will also run through your other app. If you already have the X10 Elite or Laser Academy system, this will work directly through there. This shows you how to do it. There's also a small Allen wrench. There's some micro tuning that we can do with this in order to ensure that the laser function in here works properly, that we get it centered and sighted, and that makes it pretty easy for us to make some simple adjustments to how this system actually operates. So with that being said, the simplest thing for us to do is just put this thing together. We're going to show you how quick and simple this is. All I'm going to do is, obviously, I've already taken my magazine out here. All I have to do is hit my pin here to disengage the action itself. When this comes apart, all I'm going to do is get my charge pin as well as the bolt carrier out. So I'm going to take both of these guys out and remove them. I'm going to set those aside. I take my bolt carrier here. All I have to do is drop that in just like that. It's super, super simple. I'm going to put this guy back down, make sure that we are engaged. And just like that, I've replaced that. And then I just simply finish by taking this guy here and dropping it into my magazine like so. Now, it's tough to hear, but if you're paying attention, we can actually see that when I drop this out and put it in, there's an audible engagement here. We'll see if you can hear that, where it's actually telling me that this system is ready to go. That is literally all that we have to do to prep to use this guy, and we're ready to start firing and sending shots downrange. All right, so let's dig into some of the functionality behind this Blackbeard system. We're going to tell you a little bit about kind of the nuance behind it, some of the tech, and how this thing might be a great tool for you. As we do that, we're also going to work our way into showing you a really cool video. A friend of ours who works in the military has extensive time behind the trigger as well as knowledge, a lot more than what we do. We put him in our building and took him through a CQB or a close quarter battle scenario to try and see like how well could he utilize this system to test and practice and do some of the things that he's trained to do. And then we try to capture as much of that, and we're going to show that to you after this. So make sure you stick around for that. The beauty of this Blackbeard system is actually really simplicity. I'm really amazed that although there's only 2 parts within this system, technically, there's a lot that goes into how well and how just swimmingly this thing operates. Number one is that both the magazine as well as the bolt carrier itself are true to life, meaning that the weight of my actual bolt carrier is pretty much simulated exactly in the bolt carrier that goes along with the Blackbeard system, just the same as with our magazine. So you're not going to get a huge differentiation in how it actually feels in hand as we try and start to get into our sight picture and we start working on our shooting, and we want everything to be as simulated as we can possibly make it and true to life, so that there's not a huge discrepancy if I actually go out and start utilizing live rounds. So that part of it is super cool. The second part is that the battery within the Blackbeard system itself will allow you to shoot up to 100,000 rounds. That's right, 100,000. That is a ton of trigger time. So we don't have to worry about this thing only lasting for 50, 60 shots or something like that and having to constantly go back and charge it. This thing is going to allow us to get a ton of target time, a ton of practice in, and a ton of trigger pulls. So that part is super, super cool. The next part, talking about the trigger pull in itself, is this system is equipped with an auto reset of the trigger itself. So that means I'm going to actually get feel for what I'm doing in terms of trigger pulling, getting more simulation of what the feel of that trigger pull actually looks like. And this thing will allow you to pull up to 10 trigger pulls per second. I probably am not capable of shooting that fast. Maybe some of you are. If you're an elite shooter, a very skilled and advanced shooter, that may be super applicable to you. But what I'm saying is that in that capacity of what this system will do, it's going to give you a very high level capability to get a lot of trigger pulls in. If you're super quick, if you're double tap, whatever that might be, and you're going to see some of that in the video coming up, how quick Ty is capable of putting shots down range, and then as well as that being very accurate. Within the bolt carrier system also, there is a laser. That laser can be adjusted, so we can get that thing sighted. Feels very similar to like bore sighting, that kind of thing. We've got some micro tuning we can use with our Allen wrench on this to make sure that we're getting that laser on target to where we want it to be, which is super cool. We don't always have to use that function. It actually will allow me to go with or without. It can do it with a simulation of the trigger itself. You can do an all-time or continuous laser on there, or you can go completely without, which is also very cool. So depending upon how you're training or your likes or dislikes with that, this thing is going to adjust and adapt to the way that you are comfortable or would like to be able to train with it. So, okay, so as we mentioned, the ability to adjust this laser is really super, super simple. So if you'll notice in the action itself here, I've got two spots here where I can actually make some adjustments. Number one, there's a switch right here, and then there's also this little kind of tuner, if you will, that allows me to move that laser and make sure that I'm headed straight down the barrel. So if I bring that in kind of close, you can see that this guy right here allows me to adjust it. I'm going to take my Allen wrench. This comes with the system. It's pretty small, so we obviously want to make sure that we're keeping good track of that. It comes with a little baggie here. And all I have to do is essentially put this guy in here, and I can make some small adjustments to where that laser is actually heading as it travels down the barrel. And we can try and make sure that we get that thing centered and sighted in the way that we want. What we found was that when we put this in, we had to do some small adjustments. When I sent the laser down range, you could see a slight bit of distortion. It wasn't super distinct. It wasn't 100% kind of clear. And so that kind of told me that the laser itself was probably banking or hitting off of the barrel, and so I wasn't getting a really true laser. And we used this small adjustment piece here, tuned it in, tweaked it just a touch, and got it right where we wanted it to be. So super easy. And then this switch here actually allows me to just either turn the laser itself on or off, depending upon what you're doing in terms of shooting or practice or whatever you're trying to accomplish. So the fact that these are both super easy to get to while you have the entire system already intact is really, really nice. And obviously it's super simple. We've shown how easy it is to break this thing down. So not hard to be able to get this thing kind of functioning the way that you want. Not a lot of moving parts, which is awesome and allows us to kind of put this thing in, get it up, get it rocking and rolling, and really a small amount of time. So that's really all there is to it. There's not a whole lot of other tweaking or messing around that you have to do to get this thing up and running. And we're super pumped to get this thing going and get an opportunity to use it a lot more. It is super, super cool. The last part that I think that I really like to let people know about in terms of this system itself is just how quick and easy I can get in and out of changing back to my actual AR, putting this in, and at the same time, then the most important and critical part for me is the feedback piece that I always like to have. And this system will actually pair and work directly with our X10 Elite app system. So when we use our phone and we're trying to get some of that feedback, this thing speaks to that just the same as our X10 Elite system does. And it's going to provide you with all that tangible feedback. It's going to tell me, am I anticipating the trigger? Am I too hard on the trigger? Am I anticipating recoil? Am I not steady with my brace arm? Whatever that might be, this system is also providing that kind of feedback too. So not only am I just getting a lot of opportunity to put a heck of a lot more shots down range, it's also going to provide me with that tangible data, that tangible feedback of how accurate was I? What are the flaws within some of the things I'm doing? Do I have common threads with some of those things? And how can I then utilize the X10 Elite system within the app to learn how I can potentially correct, improve, or change some of those mechanics so that I can improve my shooting capacity. So with that being said, we're going to take you to this video. We're going to show you Ty kind of clearing through our building, give you a really cool look at this thing in action, and then we're going to come back and talk about how this system might be a really great tool for you. So let's check this out. All right, so we've got Ty here. We brought someone in that has a lot more experience than us behind the trigger and someone who's a lot more skilled than both Jason and I. And we wanted to kind of get his feedback, as you saw in some of the videos we brought together of him kind of going through some clearing situations, getting an opportunity to use the Blackbeard system. And we wanted to kind of get his input, knowing the things that he has in his background as far as being in the military and kind of his thoughts on what the system was like. So initial thoughts from you.
I like the system for sure. I can see its applicability, especially in the military community, the shooting community. It has some limitations, specifically recoil. Right. It's obviously not giving you that feedback of real rounds and the felt recoil and follow-on shots. But other than that, for practicing an Army qualification or a Marine Corps qualification shooting, even practicing CQB, I see it as super beneficial. If they had targetry that was maybe a little more life-size, sure, to be more realistic, some of the targetry that we saw and we used. Right. It's kind of small. You want to be fairly close in to hit those size targets. Other than that, I thought it was awesome. I think any team, any unit for fairly decent price could add that, right, to their repertoire and have another great training aid. Right.
And I think for us, like what we found is just the ability to get that many rounds that you normally would have to use live ammo with, those types of things. I know you and I talked before this about the recoil factor, right? Like that's the one maybe thing where you're going to lose a little bit of that, but the feedback that you get from it, I know we kind of tracked a bunch of your shots and looked at them, and some of the things I noticed was your tactics compared to, say, a traditional shooter where, I'm shooting square, I'm shooting upright, I'm shooting, like this. And for you, if you were paying attention to the video,
you're really maneuvering, and so the gun's not always just right here, right? It's how are you kind of trying to use your eyes and position yourself. Talk a little bit about that. Do you see possibilities? Because I think as we look at it, I'd be curious to see how that looks in terms of the way the system interpreted that compared to being very static, right? Like, do you think that there's maybe some possible implications with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, without knowing the science behind, the system itself and how it works, when you're pieing, doors and corners and things like that, and you're canting your weapon or maybe bringing your buttstock over your shoulder, obviously you're going to get a lot more sway and movement in your muzzle versus just static shooting. Right. Again, without the recoil piece, it's really hard to judge, especially follow-on shots. But at least, if nothing else, that is giving you great feedback for your basic mechanics, your breathing, your trigger squeeze.
Right.
If you're just trembling, maybe you're using too much muscle and you're too tight and you're starting to shake up. Like, it's going to give you instant feedback on that type of stuff and let you know what you need to correct.
For sure. So. I think you mentioned too, we were talking a little bit also offline about how this would be a great tool for like basic training, where you're introducing guys and gals into how do they handle a firearm, and again, you think about the thousands and thousands of rounds that it requires to get people to be somewhat proficient at shooting, right? And this would be a great solution for that. And so for us, I think it's been really cool to get the opportunity, number one, get a lot of rounds in, get that instant feedback piece, and then have someone like yourself come in and be able to tell us, like, hey, these are the things that I see. These are things that maybe I can translate into stuff that your experiences can draw from. And to me, I think that's pretty cool. So looking at that and your own setup, right? Like how easily you could utilize that in your day-to-day, whether it's shooting regimen or something like that, bottom line, bottom dollar. Yeah. Is that a useful tool to you?
Yeah, absolutely. In any training or anything I've done in the military thus far, there's always a progression, right? A crawl, walk, run phase, right?
Right.
So to me, that is just another tool. Maybe it's in your crawl phase or your walk phase. When we're practicing CQB or room clearing, everything's always dry at first. You're just walking through, you're just flowing. Then maybe you move to UTM before you go live, right? So this is just another tool where you're saving ammunition, you're saving money, you're getting great feedback, on where your shot placement is and your basic mechanics. So yes, I see it as a valuable tool in the tool basket.
And I know you talked about like working with groups where you're shooting and trying to kind of like give feedback and improve people's shooting, right? Like I think as an instructor, if you're that proficient, which obviously I am not by any means, it would provide you with the ability to go from that kind of subjective piece to adding some objective measures to, what are people doing, right? Because a lot of times you're kind of troubleshooting that, and I know you and I talked about that as being like, man, that'd be super helpful if I'm actually trying to teach people, better shooting tactics and working on process or breathing or whatever, is to be able to go back to that and say, well, is what I'm seeing match up to that, right? So I think that's pretty cool too.
For sure. And again, when you're talking, shooting in the prone, kneeling, even standing, like basic rifle qual type stuff, as an instructor or somebody trying to teach, you can see where their rounds are hitting on their 25 meter, zero. But this is just so much data that it's providing you that it takes the guessing out, right? Because a lot of times you're looking at where their rounds are placing and you're like, I think this is what you're doing, but you're not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Whereas this is telling you exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. So we greatly appreciate, obviously, having you come, help us kind of run this thing to the paces, see from a different lens, right? Rather than Jason and I kind of like fumbling through, like, I don't know, this might look cool or whatever else. So thank you for coming in and giving us an opportunity to, kind of see it from a little bit more of a distance and how this thing might operate in a little bit more of a real setting, right? And, give people a little bit better idea of how this system works. And we're excited to obviously get to use it more and hopefully share it with some other people. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it.
Cool.
We hope that you guys enjoyed actually seeing this thing in action. We didn't actually put in a lot of the trigger time. We've utilized this system a lot, but we thought that this would be a really cool opportunity to show someone very qualified in action using a system like this that has a lot of transferability and very applicable to someone that could use this system quite a bit. We love the maybe novelty of being able to use this. We love to be able to get out and shoot, and now being able to maybe do that more often through the use of Blackbeard system is something that obviously we welcome and we're pretty excited about. And we've been that way with all of the Mantis systems, because I know for me personally, I have literally shot thousands of rounds that I probably wouldn't have sent down range if I didn't have the Mantis system. So we're super happy to share that with you. We want to thank Mantis, obviously, for giving us the opportunity to not only run through this Blackbeard system, but all the Mantis systems. Be sure that you take a look at the link down below. We always want to provide value to people viewing and watching and supporting us. There's a link there to Mantis. Get yourself a discount on this Mantis Blackbeard system or any of the Mantis systems. They are absolutely tremendous. We want to thank Ty for joining us, showing us this thing in real world and real life action. Getting a bird's eye view of seeing him do that was absolutely awesome. It was really cool for me to be able to try and film him showing us some of the things that he's qualified for and skilled at that I know I am definitely not. So we hope that you'll like and subscribe to our page. We absolutely appreciate your comments. If you have them, leave them below. If we can answer questions for you, fill in the blanks, or even just say, hey, thank you for providing this video, or let us know how we can improve. We always value feedback from our watchers. So thank you guys for joining us. We've got a lot more videos to go. We hope that 2023 is off to an awesome start for you guys, and we'll see you next time.